All right, welcome. We're glad that you are here joining us in the online gathering space here of this gathering experiment. This is, if you are unfamiliar with us, kind of a weird experiment of two different churches who come from very different backgrounds and traditions and all that, working together because we decided, hey, this is kind of fun and we're better together than we are apart. My name is Nick. And originally, I come from the Pathways Church community, but we are now married to our friends from the Zion Lutheran Church, and we have been doing church together here for a few months, meeting together on Sunday mornings, do our gatherings together, and even ministry during the week. And technically, we are two separate churches still, but we are doing a whole lot together, and it's been a lot of fun because, you get to know somebody else and their traditions and there are things that they enjoy to do, things that are meaningful to them, and it's been fun introducing ourselves to one another. So we're glad that you have tuned in and are joining us here today. This is we do meet in person in Everett, Washington, but this is the online format of this group. Now, you can find out a little bit more about us. As I mentioned, we have some shared values in common. And so you can read up on those if you go to our website at everettgathering.com. You can learn a little bit more about us. But generally, we like to introduce ourselves with two words in case you don't want to do a lot of reading, okay? I mean, you can go online and you can read it, and that could be beneficial, and I would encourage you to do it. But if you say, just tell me about you, I don't want to go read about it, I guess I'd describe it in two words. We are a group that is both cautious and curious. We are cautious because many of us have grown up in religious environments, of course. Here in the Western world, in the United States, it's pretty hard not to run into religion at some point. And many of us have grown up around religion or involved in churches growing up, perhaps. And we have seen religion used in some ways that is very healthy and positive and helpful and encouraging and really beautiful. But we've also seen religion used in some ways that's harmful, that's exclusionary, that's caused harm or pain to us or people in our lives that we love, and we have seen that religion can go off the tracks rather quickly. So we're a group that sort of finds ourselves a little skeptical or at least cautious about organized religion. And I know what you're saying, isn't this a church? And by definition, doesn't that mean that you are an organized bunch of religious people? And yes, that is true. We at least hope to be semi-organized as a religious group. But we live in this tension where we are an organized group of religious people, but also a little cautious or skeptical about organized religion. And we know that's an oxymoron, but we think that's a pretty healthy tension to exist in. The other word we use to describe ourselves is curious. We're a group that likes to ask questions. Maybe you do too. We think it's great to ask questions, especially about things that you don't understand. Nobody looks down on you or looks at you weird for asking a question about something that you assume everybody thinks that you should know. It's absolutely great to ask questions in this group. But we don't spend as much time asking questions about things that we don't know as much as we spend a lot of time asking questions about things we think we do know. Because it turns out there's a whole lot of things that perhaps are ways of thinking or beliefs that were handed down to us from others that we were surrounded by, perhaps growing up or later in adult life. But there's some things that maybe we haven't thought all the way through, and we thought that maybe we knew those things, but upon more careful reflection, or sometimes just new information, we recognize that maybe we need to ask some questions about those things too, because it's often the places where we think we have all the answers that we discover we've got some blind spots. And so we spend a lot of time asking questions about things we think we know are true or whatever. So that is who this group is. We like to ask questions and we are a little bit cautious. Now what we're going to be doing here today is we're kind of kicking off the Christmas season here. I mean, we're past Thanksgiving now, so we're kind of into the Christmas season. And we're going to be talking about Christmas today. But before we get there, we're going to do a time of singing. This is sort of an online worship experience, kind of like an online church. And we don't have the camera parked in the back of the auditorium filming what we're doing live, but we create this thing as sort of especially for those of you who are online. And so you say, well, we still want the music and all that, so we are going to do some singing. Billy, our worship leader, will come on the screen. He's going to lead us in a little bit of songs. I think some of them are even Christmas songs. And then in between these two singing elements, there's going to be a little reflective video that's about Christmas. And then after that, there will be a little bumper video, and then I will come back on the screen. And we're going to talk about Advent and all that it means to celebrate the preparation that leads up to Christmas. And then as we get to the end of that, we are going to do a time of communion. Now, we do this every week in our in-person gatherings. We carve out time to take bread and the cup, which are symbols that Jesus left behind for us to commemorate his death and his new life and our participation in this new way of life. And so we do that every week together as a group in person, and we create space for it here in the online gathering as well. So if you would like to participate in communion, you'll just need to round up a couple things to do that at the end. You can hit the kitchen at any time here or the pantry and find something for the bread, which could be a cracker even. It could be a little chunk of bread is fine. You don't need much. And then something for the cup, which could be some juice or it could be some wine left over from last night's dinner. Whatever you have there, they don't have to be exactly perfect. You just need a couple symbols to represent the body and the blood of Jesus. And so we will do that at the end if you want to gather up those few things. Okay, I think that's pretty much it. Why don't we get into the music here? We got candles to light today. We got a couple Christmas songs, a little medley here I think Billy's got at the beginning. And, we're in the Christmas spirit here, people. It's time, all right? We're finally there. Hopefully the lights are hung up at your house and the Christmas trees are going up or whatever else, because it is a festive time of year, and we're going to start singing about that here today, okay? So, Billy, take it away. Get us in the mood for Christmas, and I'll see you back here on the screen in just a little bit.
In reply, echoing their joyous strain. Gloria in excelsis Deo. Gloria in excelsis Deo. On earth and mercy mild, God and sinners reconciled. Joyful all ye nations rise, join the triumph of the skies. With angelic hosts proclaim, Christ is born in Bethlehem. Hark the herald angels sing, glory to the newborn King. Joy to the world, the Lord is come. Let earth receive her King. Let every heart prepare Him room, and heaven and nature sing, nature sing, nature sing, nature sing. Earth and heaven and nature sing, and heaven and heaven and nature sing, and heaven and heaven and nature sing.
Where refugees seek deliverance that never comes. and the heart consumes itself as if it would live. Where children age before their time, and life wears down the edges of the mind. Where the old man sits with mind grown cold. While bones and sinew, blood and cell go slowly down to death. Where fear companions each day's life. And perfect love seems long delayed. Christmas is waiting to be born. In you, in me, in all mankind.
If my heart is so overwhelmed and I cannot hear your voice, I'll hold on to what is true, though I cannot see. If the storms of life they come and the road ahead gets steep, I will lift these hands in faith, I will believe. I'll remind myself of all that you've done and the life I have because of your Son. 'Cause love came down and rescued me, love came down and set me free, and I am yours, I am forever yours. Mountain high and valley low, I'll sing, I'll remind my soul that I am yours, I am forever yours. When my heart's filled with hope and every promise comes my way, when I feel your hands of grace rest upon me, staying desperate for you, God, staying humble at your feet, I will lift these hands in praise, I will believe. I'll remind myself of all that you've done and the life I have because of your Son. 'Cause love came down and rescued me, love came down and set me free, and I am yours, I am forever yours. Mountain high and valley low, I'll sing, I'll remind my soul that I am yours, I am forever yours. 'Cause I am yours, I am yours, rescued me. Love came down and set me free. I am yours, I am forever yours. Mountain high, valley low, I'll sing out, remind my soul that I am yours. I am forever yours. 'Cause love came down and rescued me. Love came down and set me free. And I am yours. I am forever yours. Mountain high, valley low, I'll sing out, remind my soul that I am yours. I am forever yours. That I am yours. I am forever yours. That I am yours. I am forever yours.
The first word you ever spoke was light, and the heat from your voice thawed us. You spoke your poetry into being, created with words like sacred alchemy, to make even a fragile thing give birth to the holy. You began with words, a genealogy of faith, lit a fire in the human voice and said testify, and said create, and said come, listen to the voices weaving the sum of life, still hanging in the loom. This is the plea of Eve, fashioned from earth, speaking with dust still on her breath. Become a little more pregnant every day with poems and books, movements and dreams, still developing cell by cell. Carry them until they're ready to be born with depth, to speak of experience and expression as one. Wait a while where the rooted night grows. You'll feel its movement coming ashore. Give in to parenting, your close-knit gift to the world. This is the plea of Mary, who took time to be holy, held a fire in her belly, and pondered it in her heart. Become a little more pregnant every day with God and God's voice, with hope and promises. Build the church inside you, not a building, but a soul. Faith straining to have birth in the silence of a holy night and a dawn of grace.
Oh, that's great. We are going to be talking about Advent here. We're into the Christmas season, and when I was on the screen a little bit earlier, I forgot one thing that you could maybe round up as we are going through this series, and that is a little candle. I've got a little votive candle here, and part of Advent is lighting candles, and normally we have a whole Advent wreath, and in our in-person gatherings we do have an Advent wreath, but in the online space, maybe you don't have a whole Advent wreath at home, but you might have a little votive candle somewhere. And if you've got one of those, you could pull it out each week and we'll light a candle together. And we'll do that here at the end of our time as we're speaking this morning. Now, as we get going, I just want to say, first and foremost, Happy New Year! All right? Happy New Year! It's a brand new year. I mean, isn't that fantastic? Aren't you excited that we're starting a whole brand new year? And I know what you're saying. I mean, you're saying, this guy is crazy. He's absolutely lost his mind. He's now getting his holidays mixed up. I mean, first, it was the reading glasses. That was last week, right? I still need those reading glasses. First, it was the reading glasses, and now he's losing his mind. This guy is aging very quickly right in front of our eyes, okay? Well, I may in fact be turning gray and needing reading glasses, but I'm not getting mixed up here on my holidays. It really is the start of a new year, at least in terms of the church calendar. Now, I know in our Gregorian calendars, you know, like the calendar you have hanging up on your wall or the one that you glance at on your phone to tell you what to do every day, I know that on those regular calendars, we start the new year after Christmas, right? January 1st, okay? I know that. But in the church, the church calendar, the new year actually starts before Christmas. It starts with Advent. And that's what we want to talk about today, which is Advent. It is the preparation leading up to Christmas. And before we get there, though, I think it might be a good idea to talk about how we even get to Advent time in the first place, because Advent is sort of a liturgical tradition that many of us are familiar with the word Advent, and we've been around it a little bit perhaps, and the lighting of candles may not be ultimately unfamiliar to us, but for many of us, we may not completely understand what it is or why it even exists. And it's especially important for this group because we are sort of a church blend right now, okay? We've got one church, the Zion Lutheran Church, which is very liturgical, okay? They are an ELCA Lutheran church, and that is a liturgical church. And then we have the Pathways Church community, which is a very, well, non-traditionally liturgical church, okay? And we've been learning each other's traditions. And in the Pathways Church, we've always actually celebrated Advent. It's one of the little liturgical things that we actually do, but there is a lot more meaning and significance to it that I'm sure our Zion friends know that many of us in the Pathways community maybe do not. So Advent is actually a really good place for us to get to know each other a little more and to know our traditions better. And that's such a great thing about holidays, isn't it? That we get to know a little bit about one another and our kind of family traditions when we celebrate holidays together. So today, we're going to talk a little bit about Advent, but before we do that, we're going to talk a little bit about church liturgy. Now, what we're going to be talking about today will probably not be new for most of the Zion Lutheran people, or if you watching this video here happen to come from a liturgical church, this won't be new for you, but you know, a little refresher never hurts. But for Pathways people, or for people who come from a non-liturgical background, this might all be brand new information. And so today, let's just do a little Church Calendar 101 seminar, all right? Let's call it Church Liturgy for Dummies. Okay, I mean, okay, that's just the name of the series of books, right? That gives you kind of the Cliff Notes version of a certain topic or idea so that you can get the kind of gist of something. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Church Liturgy for Dummies, Church History, or Church Calendar 101. Now, there's a couple things about church liturgy that will help make sense of Advent. And so as we learn some of these things, I think you're going to learn a little bit more about what Advent is, and I'm hoping that that will then add some meaning and significance to this holiday season for you. So let's learn a couple things about church liturgy. And there's two really important things that you need to know about church liturgy that will help you make sense of Advent. And the first thing is this, the lectionary, okay? Now, some of you say, well, I know what the lectionary is. I grew up in a liturgical church. I know exactly what that is. Okay, but for those of you who don't, let me explain the lectionary to you. The lectionary is a series of rotating Bible readings that are intended to be used every Sunday in worship gatherings by the church. Now, Pathways has never followed the lectionary, but most liturgical churches do. Now, these are readings each week. They've got a gospel reading, an epistle reading, something from one of the letters of Paul or one of the letters of the New Testament, a Psalms reading, and an Old Testament reading. And many liturgical churches follow this lectionary. It rotates every week so that you're always experiencing different readings, and then the sermons are often based off of this lectionary reading for the week. Now, the very first lectionary, sometimes called the historic lectionary, is widely believed to have been established by a guy named Jerome in the late 4th and into the 5th centuries. Now, St. Jerome, is best known for his translation of the Bible into Latin, that we know as the Latin Vulgate, but he's also kind of famous because he created this primitive lectionary. And it is widely considered to be probably the first lectionary, but it's very different than the lectionary that is used today. The idea of a lectionary has been around since St. Jerome, but it has changed a lot over time. It has been revised many, many times, and the most recent revision happened in 1994. Oh, 1994. You remember the 90s? I believe in 1994 I was a sophomore in high school, and that was the last time that the lectionary was revised, and today we call this the Revised Common Lectionary. And it is used by most liturgical churches, including Lutheran churches, Methodist churches, Episcopalian churches, all sorts of liturgical churches use the Revised Common Lectionary. Now, the lectionary has several readings for every Sunday, and they rotate. As I said, they have the gospel reading, a reading from one of the epistles, one of the letters, a reading from Psalms, and a reading from somewhere else in the Old Testament. And it rotates on a 3-year cycle. Any idea why it's on a 3-year cycle? Well, it's because of the Gospels, okay? There are 3 what we call synoptic Gospels. Now, we know there's 4 Gospels, right? Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. Hold my horse while I get on. That's just a little device I learned in Sunday school as a kid, and I can't get it out of my head. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. There's 4 Gospels, but Matthew, Mark, and Luke are fairly similar. They include a lot of the same material and are sort of written in similar ways. John is sort of the outlier. John includes different information about Jesus and is written stylistically quite different. And so the first 3 Gospels are called the Synoptic Gospels, meaning that they're sort of similar. And what the lectionary intends to do is to take us each year through one of those Gospels. And so they named each year in a very creative way. Anybody know the names of the 3-year cycle of the lectionary? Well, it's year A, year B, and year C. Okay? Not too creative, just A, B, and C. Okay, now year A takes you all the way through the Gospel of Matthew in the Gospel readings. Year B takes you all the way through the Gospel of Mark in the Gospel readings, and year C, of course, takes you all the way through the Gospel of Luke. Now, the Gospel of John is actually broken up and spread out through all 3 years, and so by the end of the 3rd year, you've actually read through all of the Gospels, you've read through almost all the Psalms, all the epistles, and a lot of the Old Testament. And guess what year we're in right now? We are in year B! Yay! Year B! I don't know. It's not any better than the other years. Okay, but that's the one that we are starting today. Now, the idea of the lectionary is that it is a tool to help the church be reading the whole Bible together regularly. It's sort of like a Bible reading plan tool. Many of you is like, well, I'm going to read the whole Bible through the year. Sometimes at New Year's, people make a commitment to read the Bible in a year, or read the New Testament in a year. And there's like a Bible reading plan that you follow in order to get that done. And that's sort of what the lectionary is, but it's not meant for just individuals, but for the entire church to be doing it together. And most liturgical churches use it, including Lutherans. That's why Zion people, you know everything that I've said so far. And it's also why you see these lectionary readings posted in our bulletin folder each week. If you come to our in-person gathering, because we are a Zion Lutheran Church and Pathways Church together, we actually have the lectionary readings and some associated prayers and thoughts for the day included in our worship folder every week. Now, the lectionary is actually a pretty useful tool. It's got some good benefits to it. For instance, it really does provide us with a diversity of texts, right? You're not going to get camped out in one spot or just whatever the preacher's kind of pet topic is. You're not going to end up there all the time. It's going to move you around so that you're exposed to all sorts of diverse texts from the Bible. Another real advantage to it is that everyone's reading it together. The idea of everyone using the Revised Common Lectionary is if you show up at this Lutheran church or that Lutheran church or this Presbyterian church or this Episcopalian church, you pretty much know what they're going to be reading that day and what they're going to be talking about. And so it allows these people in various different churches with various different traditions to have the same sort of content that they're talking so that they can converse and pray together and all of that. So it's got some real benefits to it. Now, from my perspective, it's also got some real drawbacks. For instance, the lectionary tends to avoid certain texts that I think it's unfortunate and unnecessary to avoid. You don't get to read through the entire Bible because the Old Testament's so long they couldn't fit it into 3 years. However, you get the gist of it, but there's some texts that are avoided for various reasons that I think are unnecessary. The other drawback, I think, to the lectionary is that it makes expository learning of texts a little bit difficult. Because it moves you around so much, it's kind of hard to go through one book all together at a time and do an expository study on it, which are the type of things that we often like to do. But overall, it's just a tool, and like all tools, it can be really useful, or also sometimes a task you set out to do requires a different tool, okay? Now, I explain this because the lectionary actually also creates something else that you need to know about church liturgy, and that is the calendar. The lectionary readings are organized in such a way that it also creates a sort of calendar. A calendar with, broadly speaking, 2 types of time. I don't mean like time traveling. That's not what we're doing here. But there are 2 types of time that are happening in the church calendar that you should be aware of. And the first one is ordinary time, sometimes called common time. And this is most of the days in the calendar year. Days that don't have a special emphasis or celebration. It's just sort of your normal rhythm of life. Because the truth is, you can't have a holiday every day, right? I mean, I know you want a holiday every day. I want a holiday every day. But if you had a holiday every day, well, then the holiday wouldn't be special, would it? It would just be like every other day, and then you'd want a holiday from your holiday, and this just gets into a whole Russian nesting doll situation that we would get lost in, okay? So every day can't be a holiday. You have to have some common time or some regular time. I mean, if every day was the same, it'd be like highlighting every sentence that you were reading, or it'd be like bolding every word in the text, or it'd be like using an exclamation point at the end of every sentence. And oh my goodness, don't we all have someone in our life right now that texts by putting exclamation points at the end of every sentence? It drives me crazy. I'm always like, why are you yelling about everything? An exclamation point is supposed to like punctuate something. It's supposed to highlight it. You can't just use them in every sentence. And so that is the idea of common time or ordinary time. Common time is where we live most of our lives. Now, the other aspect of time in the church calendar is called sacred time. And there are moments in the calendar that are set aside to show how our lives are not simply common, but are also infused with the sacred. Now, it's not intended, the sacred versus common time is not intended to segment us into moments of either secular or sacred. because you can kind of think like, oh, okay, well, some things are sacred and some things are secular. No, that's not the intent of it. The intent of it is to highlight that the sacred is always invading the space and moments that we think are regular. And so the idea of the sacred time is that it draws our attention in sections to what is always present. Now, a professor and preacher, Patricia Wilson Kastner, she says it this way: sacred time connects Christians as members of the body of Christ and draws the worshiping community into its broader union with Christ and with the world. Sacred time serves to focus Christians on the great feasts of the life, death, and resurrection of Christ. Okay, so this happens. You have sacred time, you have ordinary time. And what's fascinating about this in the church calendar and in church liturgy is that this actually happens in both small ways and big ways. It happens in the micro and it happens in the macro. In the micro, these sacred moments break forth every week. And in the macro, these sacred moments break out seasonally. Now, think of it this way. Weekly, there are these micro moments of sacred time, weekly, where we come together to worship Jesus and to participate in communion in our Sunday gatherings. And what this brief moment of time is on often a Sunday morning, or if you're doing this online, I guess at whatever time you choose to do it, but it is this particular point in time set aside each week, once a week for a few hours or just an hour. And the whole point of it is sacred time that interrupts our common time and allows us to connect again to something sacred. So this actually happens in micro every week. But it happens in macro seasonally because there are different holidays that are, and the lead-ups to those holidays that are considered sacred times, and they break up the sort of yearly calendar of the common time. Now, of course, the best example of this are the two major holidays on the church calendar, right? Easter and the run-up to Easter, which is called Lent, right? It's a breakup of ordinary time. It's not just one day, it's several weeks leading up to Easter. And then, of course, Christmas and the time of Advent. And Advent is really to Christmas what Lent is to Easter. It is all this sacred time that is drawing us out of our ordinary moments to help us reflect on something deeper, to kind of highlight or bold a part of the calendar to draw us into something sacred. And the intent of these sacred times is to help us see our lives in the bigger context of what God is doing. Because you just kind of go through life, right? And it's easy to just kind of go along with the flow, and you don't really realize that there might be some bigger purpose, something bigger happening, something larger than you. Eugene Peterson says it this way: God is the larger context and plot in which our stories find themselves. And sacred time is helping us to see the bigger context of our individual lives and stories. It invites us into the story of God's people, and it's a rhythm intended to shape us into the form and fashion of Jesus himself. Okay, so we got the lectionary and we got the calendar, and Advent then is a part of this sacred time. It's the sacred time in the church calendar that starts the Sunday after Thanksgiving. Well, usually this is the Sunday after Thanksgiving, which would normally be the beginning of Advent. But I'll let you in on a little secret. We're starting a week early this year, okay? Because every now and then, the calendar gets screwed up because Christmas Eve lands on a Sunday. Now, normally you need 4 Sundays before Christmas Eve, and that's how Advent works. Now, this year, the 4th Sunday of Advent is actually also Christmas Eve. And in the wreath, there's 5 candles, 4 for the Sundays leading up to Christmas Eve, and 1 the Christ candle that you light on Christmas Eve. And we aren't actually meeting in person that Sunday morning of Christmas Eve. We're just meeting for a Christmas Eve service. So we decided just to start this Sunday in Advent like you normally would if the calendar didn't get all screwed up with Christmas Eve being on a Sunday. Now, Advent is actually the beginning of the church calendar. That's why I said Happy New Year. Because in the church calendar, the Christmas event is so important, it marks the beginning of the new year. So, Happy New Year! I mean, you thought Happy New Year was going to be after Christmas. No, it's before it. And it makes a lot of sense when you think about it that Christmas would be the event that starts the new year. So with all that in mind, let's talk a little bit about Advent. Now, of course, Advent is done in many different ways, and lighting candles is a part of it. Personal devotions are a part of it. Church devotions are a part of it. There are gatherings focused around the theme. But Advent is intended to build anticipation and reflection on the arrival of Jesus into the world. And that's actually what Advent means. And we've explained this in years past, but just as a reminder, Advent really means arrival or coming. That's what Advent means, right? You just kind of hear the word and you light the candles, but what does this word actually mean? It means arrival, okay? Because you're waiting for the arrival. You're anticipating the arrival of Jesus being born. Now, you might be saying to yourself, wait, what are we anticipating here? I mean, because Jesus was already born like 2,000 years ago. So isn't the anticipation actually over now? I mean, we're past that, aren't we? Well, yes and no. Now, there's two Greek words that might help us understand this idea of anticipation and arrival and waiting for arrival when it comes to Advent. And these are the words anamnesis and prolepsis. Now, anamnesis refers to remembering or recalling the past, right? You probably have heard of amnesia, right? Amnesia means you can't remember anything, right? I've got amnesia. I don't even remember who my name is, right? That's amnesia. But this is a negation of that. It adds the at the beginning, I can't even say it now. It adds the to the beginning of amnesia, right? And that means here that you actually do remember, you actually do recall past events. So it's looking back into the past. Now, prolepsis is another Greek word, and it means the idea of experiencing or considering events that have not actually occurred yet as if they have already taken place. It's experiencing the future as the present. And these two words actually capture the tension of Advent, because at Advent we remember the incarnation of Christ. We remember that what has already happened, that God has become one of us, that he has walked on this planet, that he was born as a human, as a baby, and placed in a manger. We recall that. We remember it. Anamnesis. We recall it. But even as we recall it, we then also identify with those who were anticipating his arrival. We put ourselves back in their shoes and we think, oh yeah, that's what it would be like to be waiting and hoping for one to come. We experience anamnesia, feeling the long wait of Israel longing for a Messiah. But at the very same time, we also look forward to Jesus' second appearance, the not yet, when one day God will come back and all suffering will end and he will finally make all things new. And so in Advent, we are simultaneously looking backward and forward at the same time. There is an already and not yet tension in this time of Advent. Eugene Peterson puts it this way: the present moment more resembles eternity than any other, because in the present, the past and the future converge. Ooh, I like that. God himself describes it this way in Revelation. He says, I am the Alpha and the Omega, says the Lord God, who is and who was and who is to come, the Almighty. You see, we get it right here, the tension of the one who was and who is to come. That there is the tension of Advent. Jesus has come, he is now here, and he is also one day coming. So in Advent, we look to the past and remember what it's like to wait for Messiah to come, and then imagine what that must have felt like while we are waiting for Christ's return in anticipation of his return. And this is what the lectionary is wanting to bring into focus for us, especially today. This idea of this tension of what it's like to wait for Christ's return. Now, I mentioned that we are in Year B! Woohoo! Year B, okay? Now, you remember which gospel I said was associated with Year B? It's Mark, okay? This year we're in lectionary cycle B, which takes us through the Gospel of Mark. And we're not going to follow the lectionary for most of the year, but in regards to Advent here, as we are following it, we are following it and we are going through then Mark for our gospel. And Mark is a funny gospel because, well, in terms of Christmas time, it's a funny gospel because it doesn't have any Jesus birth stories. Mark doesn't include any birth narratives of Jesus. When you first meet Jesus in Mark, he's a full-grown man, okay? And that's sort of a challenge for Advent because you got no birth narratives, right? You got Christmas with no baby Jesus, no Mary, no Joseph, no manger. In fact, the whole Gospel of Mark opens with Jesus meeting his cousin John the Baptist, an adult already, and being baptized. There is no baby Jesus. And so how do you do Advent when you're in year B and you've got the Gospel of Mark? Well, the lectionary actually does something kind of creative here. It takes us to a section of Mark just before Jesus goes to the cross and where Jesus is talking about something specific. Apocalypse. Okay? Mark has an apocalyptic Christmas. All right, let's look at it here. We'll just look at a part of the lectionary reading from the gospel today out of Mark 13. It really goes through verse 38, I think, but Mark 13, verse 24 through 27 says this. But in those days, following that distress, which was just talked about, a whole lot of bad things happening, the sun will be darkened and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from the sky and the heavenly bodies will be shaken. At that time, people will see the Son of Man coming in clouds with great power and glory, and he will send his angels and gather his elect from the four winds, and from the ends of the earth to the ends of the heavens. Huh. Now that's a strange Christmas text, isn't it? Kind of sounds like a scene from a Left Behind movie or something like that. But it's actually a very specific type of discourse that the lectionary introduces us to here, that Jesus is speaking. And Jesus is speaking in a very specific type of discourse that is called apocalypse. And apocalypse simply means to reveal or to uncover. And we looked at this when we did a series on Revelation a few years back. I don't know if you remember it, but a global pandemic broke out. And so we started a series through the book of Revelation. And we came across this word quite a bit, apocalypse. And it just means to reveal, to uncover. And probably the best way to think of this word or what it means is to think of a curtain in a play. You know, maybe you go to see a play, a musical, and you sit down, you know, and then all of a sudden the lights dim a little bit, and it's kind of your cue that things are going to start. And so the lights go totally off, and all of a sudden you begin to hear music play, right? You can hear it coming from the stage. But the curtain is pulled down. You can hear the sounds, but you don't know what's going on behind the curtain. And then all of a sudden, right, as the music is building to a crescendo, the curtain goes up, and you can see what is happening behind the curtain. And that is an apocalypse. It's a revelation. It's a revealing. It's an uncovering of what is there. And so in the Bible text here, when we come across these apocalyptic texts, this type of literature, what is happening is it is showing what is behind the curtain. It's showing that God is present even if it doesn't look like it. Now, it's important to know that when you read apocalyptic literature from the ancient world, it's all symbolic language, okay? None of it is meant to be literal or to be read literal. It is all symbol. And Jewish people use this type of writing and speaking as a sort of anti-imperial, counter-revolutionary protest. It was called Jewish apocalyptic literature. And it's a type of literature that uses symbols and evocative imagery to give oppressed people some hope that even though things look pretty grim right now, there's more going on than you could see. And you could see why maybe that would be useful to the Jewish people, right? We have good examples of this type of literature in the Bible, in the book of Daniel, Ezekiel, Isaiah, in the New Testament, Revelation. And often this material is misunderstood as sort of end-of-the-world predictions, when really what they are is a sort of creative political critique of the Roman Empire, the Babylonian Empire, and it is reminding people that even though it seems like everything is going wrong, that if you could just lift up the curtain, you could see that God is here and he is coming to save you. It's an attempt to pull up the curtain in a very creative and symbolic way to show that God is here. And when we come across the Gospel of Mark here through the lectionary reading in Mark 13, that's actually the type of discourse that Jesus is using. And it's really the scene in Mark. Now, the Gospel of Mark is usually dated right around the fall of Jerusalem in 70 AD. There was a Jewish revolt around that time because Rome occupied Israel, and the Jewish people were always trying to throw off their Roman oppressors. And around 70 AD, there was a big revolt from the Jewish side, and Rome came in and absolutely quashed the rebellion. They burned the city, they killed many of the people living there, and they ended up ultimately destroying the temple. And that had to feel, if you were a Jewish person in that context, that had to feel like the whole world was falling apart. And Mark's gospel is actually born into this world. In Mark's gospel, he's sharing the good news to people who are desperately in need of good news. And what the gospel is telling them, don't worry, Jesus has already come, and all these bad things have happened, but Jesus will come again. And ultimately what we read there in Mark 13 is that he will one day come and gather all his people from all the corners of the earth as they have been scattered by what has just happened. And we will discover that he has been present with us, is present with us, and will be present with us. And that's actually, even though it's a weird text for Christmas, it's actually a pretty good Christmas thought. Because this was the hope of the Messiah from the very beginning. You know, Israel kind of not new to these conflicts. You know, they were held captive in Egypt. They were conquered by the Assyrians. They were hauled off into captivity by Babylon. And then they were later ruled by Rome. And all along the way, they were waiting for a Messiah to show up and make things right. They were looking around thinking, our whole world is falling apart all the time. Where is God with us? How is he going to save us? I mean, that is really kind of the whole pre-Christmas story. It's how Christmas starts. It's that hope and anticipation that Jesus is born into. And Mark has Jesus telling his disciples to wait with anticipation during these difficult moments of their life, just as Israel was waiting for Messiah all those years of captivity before. To keep awake and look for God's presence. That's a pretty good thought for today too, isn't it? You know, Mark is trying to help his readers to realize they need to stay awake, be alert, to look for where God is present. And that's sort of the idea of Advent. It's one of these sacred times where we're trying to be alert, to wake up out of our regular time and notice where God is so present in our life that perhaps we kind of go through life just kind of walking through it with the curtain closed, never recognizing that God is all around us doing incredible things. And at Advent time, what we're trying to do is raise the curtain to see what it is that we often miss. Advent, well, it truly is attempting to be an apocalypse. A revealing that God is with us even if we don't see it. Now, this year during the Advent season, we have some personal and family devotions and Advent calendars that we're handing out in our in-person gathering. And if you were here online, we have the link in the description of the video, and we'll try to put it in the comments here as well. But it's a link you can just go to and download this little Advent guide for free. You can just print it off or put it on your iPad, whatever. You can just get the PDF and you can follow along with it. It's got a devotional thought per week, one per week, and it'll kind of follow along with what we're talking about here. And it's really well done. It's made by the ELCA, the Evangelical Lutheran Church of America, which is the denominational head of Zion Lutheran Church. And it's just really, really well done. And I would encourage you to download it and read it together as a family or individually. There's even a little Advent calendar that you can't download, but you could order it if you want to do that online. And it's got those little doors that you open up each day, and there's kind of a little prayer in some of them, or a little activity in some of them. And something as simple as a little devotional guide or even a little Advent calendar that you open a door on each day can really be a great way to help this time feel sacred. And I found that the discussion questions at the end of each of the devotional thoughts are just fantastic. And so today I wanted to read the final paragraph from the first week's reading, because I think it's pretty good. It's talking about this idea of revealing where God's presence is in our lives today. And so the first reading, it ends like this. And what does all that mean for us today as we begin Advent, this season of waiting and anticipation? Perhaps we're called to recognize the way God is always present. Maybe, just maybe, the role of the church in this season is not trying to figure out how we can bring people to Jesus, but discerning how we can be more fully present with our neighbors, lamenting injustice, confronting human need, reflecting the love of God in service, and recognizing that these are the spaces where God is being revealed every day. Wow, I love that. It's saying we need a Christmas Advent apocalypse. We need to raise the curtain and recognize the spaces that God is always present in every day. And that's a pretty good way to start Advent. Praying for a revelation. Praying for an apocalypse. Praying for the curtain to be pulled back, for us to become fully awake and to see where God is here already among us. Now, one of the most famous traditions for the Advent season is the Advent wreath. It's one of the best known customs of the Advent season. And there's a lot of symbology within the wreath itself. The wreath is an unbroken circle of greens as an image of everlasting life. Some would say it's a victory wreath, kind of like one of those Greek, wreaths that you would put on your head when you'd win the Olympics. Or the crown of Christ, some have likened it to, or just the wheel of time itself. But the 4 candles on the outside, they mark the progress of the 4 weeks of Advent, and also we light one each week, and so what we see is the light begin to grow brighter even as there is increasing darkness in the time of winter. And each week has a theme, and this week's theme, of course, is the theme of revelation, of apocalypse, of seeing God in your everyday life, of beginning to recognize where God is present that you often miss him. And so today, I'd like to light this little candle. And maybe you've got a candle in front of you. And as we light this candle today, I'd like to pray that we might have an Advent apocalypse, a revelation of where God is present with us. Here's the reading for today as we light the candle. Praise to you, O God, our salvation, who is never far away and always near to us. You hold us secure in our waiting and keep us to stay awake to your movement in our world. You show up in our lives at unexpected times. And we light this candle today in waiting for your arrival. We pray for you to come quickly, Lord, but also we pray that we would have a revelation of you this Christmas season, that we would have eyes to see where you are already present with us. Pull back the curtain and help us to see you in the everyday spaces of our lives. Let's light the candle. Let's pray. Jesus, we thank you so much that you have come here, that you have shown us what you are like, God. We could read about you, we could hear people talk about you, theorize about what you might be like, But then Jesus, you took all the guessing out of it, and you became a human. And of course, we know that you died for us. But what you did other than that is you showed us what God is like. We now know what you are like, God, because of Jesus. And you showed us how to live in your way. And as we are reminded of that this Christmas season, we see so many unexpected things. We see a God who does not lord his power over others, but serves them. A God who does not demand things of his creatures, but ends up laying down his life for them. And so, God, you are so unexpected. And what we pray this Advent season is that you would awaken us to all the ways in which you are present with us everywhere that we go. Won't you help us to find your presence in the everyday moments of life this Advent season? We love you, and it's in your name we pray. Amen. We're going to go to a time of communion now. Billy's going to lead us in a communion song here, and you're welcome to take communion at that time if you have those elements. And then after that, I'll come back on the screen here, and we'll wrap up with some announcements today. Okay, let's go to communion.
I give you glory for all you brought me through. And now I'm ready for whatever you want to do. I'm moving forward to follow after you. And now I'm ready for whatever you want to do. Your presence is an open door. We want you, Lord, like never before. Your presence is an open door. So come now, Lord, like never before. In every season, your grace has been enough. And I'm believing the best is yet to come. The cross before me, my hope of things above. And in you, Jesus, the best is yet to come. Your presence is an open door. We want you, Lord, like never before. Your presence is an open door. So come now, Lord, like never before. want you, Lord, like never before. Your presence is an open door. So come now, Lord, like never before. Your presence is an open door. We want you, Lord, like never before. Hey, your presence is an open door. So come now, Lord, like never before. So come now, Lord, like never before.
All right, that's great, Billy. Thanks so much for that. We have a couple announcements here, things that are happening all over the place for the holiday season. So I want to give you a couple announcements there. First of all, I'd want to invite you to join us in our in-person gatherings. This is a great space, a way to connect if it's not easy to get to where we are in person. But you really ought to come check out this whole thing in person. It's pretty fun. The best part of it is the people that are there. So we've just got some really great people from both groups here, Zion Lutheran Church and Pathways Church, that are working together, and man, it's just good to see people working together, because it feels like so often in our world today we're polarized and set apart and all that, and it's fun to see people from different perspectives coming together. And so I think you'd appreciate that anytime you're in town or around. We meet at Zion Lutheran Church's campus, their building there in Everett, Washington, and we'd love to have you join us. There is a couple other things. There's no youth group today. The students are taking this Sunday off because of the holiday weekend, people out of town and all of that. So if you're in junior high or high school, if you show up at the building tonight, you can do that. There just won't be anybody there. So plan on getting together again next week. Each week we've been mentioning that there is a Tuesday Bible study online. It happens through Zoom, and so if you would like to be a part of that, it's a really great little Bible study. I've been to it a couple times, and it was fun. It's just an hour long. They cut off right at 8 p.m. You can do it in the comfort of your own home with a beer or a glass of wine or some coffee or tea in your hand, and even sitting in your pajamas if you wanted to. So the Zoom link is there on the screen. You can screenshot that and jump on anytime if you are interested. We have got lots of things coming up in December. First of all, the Pacifica Chamber Orchestra will be back at the Zion Church building coming up here on December 2nd at 3 p.m. Some fantastic musicians from around the Puget Sound region putting on a concert, and you can attend if you would like to. You don't need to buy tickets in advance. They'll be sold at the door. They're $25 for general admission and $20 for seniors and students. You can pay with cash or check at the door, and I'd encourage you to come. It is a really beautiful music concert that they put on, and you'll probably enjoy that. Also coming up the very next Saturday, the 9th, we are doing a St. Nick party, which is just our version of a Christmas party. We're going to have a fun time. We're inviting people from the neighborhood and from just church and everywhere just to come hang out. We're going to be doing some cookie decorating. We'll play some games. We're going to have a lunch potluck. And we're even going to have jolly old St. Nick there himself, so you can get your pictures with Santa there at the party. It'll be from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. It's a matinee party, so I know you got parties to go to in the evenings and all that, so this won't be in the way. It'll be right there around noon, and so an easy party to come to, and we hope that you will join us in that. You can find on our Facebook page, we've already got an event created for that, and you can respond to it and RSVP there, and that'll help us know how many people are coming. Also, of course, Christmas Eve is coming up. And Christmas Eve is a Sunday, as I mentioned earlier. We're actually going to have 2 separate Christmas Eve services at 10 a.m. There will be a much more traditional liturgical service that is happening, and that will happen at 10 a.m. And then at 5 p.m., we are going to do a candlelight service. We're going to sing the carols, tell the Christmas story, If you'd like to bring cookies, that would be great. We're going to try to create a cookie bar. We'll provide some. Anybody else wants to bring some, that's great. We'll have a cocoa bar. And Christmas pajamas are welcome. If you'd like to show up in your Christmas pajamas, that will be fun. And of course, we'll have the candles and we'll sing Silent Night, and it'll be a fun time together. Okay. Also, we have our email newsletter. If you want to get information on some of the events that are coming up, please message us on Facebook, or you can email me. My email's on the screen there, and we will add you to our email that'll go out this week with a reminder of this and other different announcements that are happening. And then finally, if you'd like to give, you want to donate, you can do so online. You can go to findpathways.com/donate, and there is a way to give there online. You can give a one-time gift, or you can set up a recurring gift. And those of you who give regularly and you're trying to get in as many donations at the end of the tax year, you just to make sure you do that before December 31st. Okay. I think that's pretty much all the announcements for now. They keep growing. There's just so much going on this time of year, and we'll have more to add to the list here, I'm very sure, soon. So, okay, that's pretty much it for today. Hope you have a great start to this Advent season, and we'll see you right back here next week. Okay, have a good one. Bye.